Anytime we have the opportunity to talk about this individual, I always want to take it. Because today, we are diving into Vancouver Canucks superstar Elias Pettersson and talking about one of the names that supposedly was a big part in Pettersson's success and his inevitable rise to stardom in Vancouver. We're talking about Petey, but we're also talking about ravioli, what's in the pocket, Oli, Tyler Toffoli, out of the San Jose Sharks. I love this guy. Ever since he was traded to the Vancouver Canucks in 2020 in what was a pretty ill-advised trade, all things considered. The Canucks were not a cup contender, but they were making cup contender-like trades, sending away Tyler Madden, Tim Schaller, and a draft pick for Tyler Toffoli right before the pandemic hit and caused everything to pause up. But Tyler Toffoli played a total of 17 games in a Vancouver Canucks sweater, scoring 14 points and 8 goals. This was all before he went to free agency and left the Vancouver Canucks because Benning ran out of time. To sign him, Jacob Markstrom, Chris Tanev, and Troy Stecher. It was an off-season to forget for Vancouver after they made the second round of the Stanley Cup Playoffs, losing to the Vegas Golden Knights in Game 7 and losing Tyler Toffoli in the process. Toffoli then went over to the Montreal Canadiens and scored 44 points in 52 games, including 28 goals. I'd say that 99% of these goals were scored against the Vancouver Canucks in that weird North Division year. It was bizarre that he just found a way to consistently get hat tricks and multi-goal games against Vancouver, haunting the dreams of Canucks fans in 2020-2021. Toffoli was then a big part of the Montreal Canadiens Stanley Cup final run, as he had scored 14 points in 22 games played. He then spent another season in Montreal before getting traded over to Calgary, becoming a 73-point player with them in 22-23, a career high in terms of overall goals and assists. This was the best season that Tyler Toffoli ever had in the NHL, and that's complimenting a guy who literally is a Stanley Cup champion. From Calgary, he went over to New Jersey, then Winnipeg, and then he signed with the Sharks, playing for a pretty reasonable $6 million a year till the end of 27-28. Tyler Toffoli right now is 34 years old, and he's shown no signs of slowing down, even though he quite literally is one of the slower players. 49 points in 79 games played, 19 goals and 30 assists, for a guy that a lot of people would label as not really having the best foot speed, nor the best versatility on the ice. Tyler Toffoli is a rare breed of hockey player who makes it work in today's NHL despite not having the foot speed to keep up with the youngins of the San Jose Sharks. But with that said, you might be wondering, how does this relate to Elias Pettersson and the Vancouver Canucks? Well, earlier this weekend we had Harman Dale posting this article on The Athletic. Elias Pettersson's future is one of the biggest decisions the Canucks' new management group faces. What should Vancouver do? Harman says he had called a couple of NHL league sources to help analyze the situation. He then posted an article about it, which is free to read, and which will be linked in the description below. The piece is titled, "Why the Canucks Should and Shouldn't Explore Trading Elias Pettersson." There is one particular excerpt from this article that I wanted to present to you here in this video, and it was posted by Canucks House right here. One thing I've always maintained in the decline of Elias Pettersson was that the Canucks were absolutely boneheaded for letting Tyler Toffoli walk. One of the multiple dumb decisions during the Benning era, and it seriously hurt the core moving into the next season. Now, for those who may not have been aware, when Tyler Toffoli was acquired by the Canucks in 2020, Brock Besser was hurt for a while. So Toffoli was the number one right winger alongside of Elias Pettersson. He was a point per game in that stint. He then was also injured himself in the play-in and wasn't able to continue throughout the entirety of that bubble playoffs. So Toffoli ended up coming back against the Vegas Golden Knights. He didn't continue playing against the St. Louis Blues either. But it was very clear that with the Vancouver Canucks, especially with an injured Brock Boeser, Tyler Toffoli was a very productive player, scoring multiple points in multiple games and being a really nice complementary piece to Elias Pettersson. Take a look at one NHL front office source said about the Pettersson situation. The biggest problem with the Pettersson story is that both sides failed each other. This front office source from another NHL team said, "If you think about it, the best winger that ever probably played on his line that fit the way he wanted to play was Tyler Toffoli." And that's a pretty damning place to be as an organization that gave a player that big of a commitment without a surefire way to support that player. Now, this one NHL front office source is essentially implying that in order for Elias Pettersson to have had the best chance of success, upon signing that contract, he needed to be surrounded by the best quality guys to allow him to play his game. And if I'm being honest, the players that played the best with Elias Pettersson were Brock Boeser, I'd say Andrei Kuzmenko, and Tyler Toffoli. Notice, all of these kinds of guys, they are all right-handed shots. They all have a pretty nasty wrister. And you can say that they all lack significant foot speed. Andrei Kuzmenko wasn't really as slow as a Toffoli or a Boeser is, but he certainly wasn't blistering around like Connor McDavid. Brock Boeser and Tyler Toffoli were pure snipers at best, and Toffoli, in particular, was somebody that could get goals a multitude of ways. Essentially, everything you could say about Brock Boeser during his 40-goal season in 23-24, you could copy and paste those same attributes and essentially describe the game that Tyler Toffoli brought to the Vancouver Canucks when he was here. So Elias Pettersson, he really meshes with these kinds of guys, and by the time Pettersson was in his contract re-signing era, Brock Boeser wasn't playing with him anymore. He was on JT Miller's line. Pettersson was playing with guys like Mikheyev and Lafferty, and the production that he had with Andrei Kuzmenko was totally gone because Kuzmenko was being played on the fourth line by Rick Tocchet. I do understand where this NHL front office source is coming from when they say that not only has Elias Pettersson failed to show up for the Canucks, but the Canucks have failed to give Pettersson the best surrounding assets to allow him to play his best game. Sounds like a great idea, right? Getting a guy who had scored 100 points on a season and removing him from the player that allowed him to get all those assists. Letting the guy that he meshed with so well in his first playoff run walk in free agency to Montreal, only to torch Vancouver over and over in the North Division season. It feels backwards for the Vancouver Canucks to have taken this stance. But at the same time, I understand the rebuttal there. Oh, Pettersson, he's making $11.6 million. If you're making this amount of money, it doesn't matter who you play with, you've got to be great. And I can fully understand that as well. It's not invalid, right? Elias Pettersson is underperforming, and he is a guy who needs to show better. He has shown better, and we know what he's capable of when he is showing better. But the fundamental truth here is, the Vancouver Canucks no longer have many of the pieces on their team that actually allowed Pettersson to get the points that he did and to display the confidence that he had once upon a time. Brock Boeser's still with the team, but you can say that Brock has moved on to greener pastures with Vancouver line match combos. But that said, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about this Elias Pettersson idea that the Vancouver Canucks letting Tyler Toffoli walk was the biggest failure that Vancouver gave to Petey throughout his entire time here in Vancouver? Thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. And bye.